Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris. I'm here to talk today about what's been on my watch list, what I've liked, what I've not liked, and generally what I've been up to over the past period of weeks and days. Anybody who watched last week's will know that it teased a little bit that I got a package from Eureka, finally. And inside it was the wonderful Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain. A kung fu comedy with a mystical edge to it from Chu Hark from 1983. And it tells the story of a young character who starts off in a tribal war of colour more so of anything else. He's blue, the other people are red, there's yellow, there's green, there's orange, they're all fighting. We don't know what they're fighting for other than the other person's a different colour or wearing a different colour suit. And as he escapes from this and meets some other characters, he finds himself in a cavern of sorts. And inside it, some mystical and weird things start to happen. Things that aren't just quite ordinary, so to speak. And so begins his journey as he meets his master, or his sensei, who he decides that he wants to be his disciple, or wants to be his Padawan, for want of quoting another more famous film. And he follows him over the country, or mainly in hope that he will take him under his wing. Weird and wonderful things happen while they fight what is known as the blood demon that is rising up from the ground in what is some sort of mix between Lord of the Rings and the alien which is in the pod. It's a really fun movie. It's not a fabulously interesting, mind-blowing movie, but it is a movie full of ideas. It is full of special effects. The ideas that they wanted to put were a bit behind what the technology was that it could be done at that time, I feel. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the effort was there to try and make it, to try and tell the story that was a bit different. The extras tale of how Chu Hark wanted this to be his answer towards Star Wars. Star Wars had been a couple of years previously, and he wanted to do something in a similar vein, but with Chinese overtones and with Chinese background, etc. in it. So, fun movie, like, not going to blow your socks off, not the greatest movie you've ever seen, but definitely a fun one to pass the time, and one that has loads of extras. Like I say, it has that, one of those selected scene commentaries by Tony Wayans. It's over an hour worth of commentaries. I mean, the film itself is a little over an hour and a half long. So good fun in its own right, and yeah, definitely worth watching and taking it. And my God, the cover art is beautiful. It's really, really stunning. Next up, I've been in a bit of a binge, not by design, I may add, of watching documentaries. And the first of which is from this BFI set, The Great White Silence and The Epic of Everest. I've only seen The Great White Silence here. And The Great White Silence tells the story of the expedition to the South Pole. So it'll be the race to be the first in the South Pole between the Norwegians and the British. And while a lot of people know the story of that, some may not. Some may not know what happened. But I have to say that the documentary itself, while it does focus on the people and the characters there, it is like a very early version of Planet Earth, if you want. It focuses a lot on the wildlife and the indigenous life that lived around that area, which makes it utterly fascinating. The fact that this even exists at all in as good form as it does is mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. So while it starts off showing how the explorers get to a certain point in the craft and the ships that they took that could have been out of Curse of the Black Pearl or something, and they get there and set up camp, it shows an awful lot about the life and the penguins and the dogs, etc. that live there, and the seals. And it's all motion. These aren't just still photographs. There's even some rudimentary forms of motion graphics used for a film that is from that time period. And it, like I say, it's utterly mind-blowing that they were even able to produce and get this, especially considering everything that happens on that expedition. So a really impactful documentary, and it got me in the mood for what was one of the new releases from BFI. And that new release is the documentary by Mark Cousins, or the new documentary from Mark Cousins called Women Make Film. Right here. Now, I hadn't planned on buying this, but it was streaming in parts. They've broken it down into 5 parts because it's a 14-hour watch. And I haven't seen all 14 hours of it yet. But the first part was on, first of the 5 parts was on the BFI player, which I've got a subscription to at the moment. And I started watching it and I fell utterly head over heels in love with this documentary. I really didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know if I wanted to watch a film that was all about unknown directors or directors that I'd never heard of, sprinkled with the 1 or 2 that I did. But it's not really like that, or it's not framed like that. It is framed as a 14-hour film school broken up into chapters where they'll look at different aspects of filmmaking. So framing, staging, costume, sound, dialogue, humour, all of those things, but told in the guise of female filmmakers. And if you're anything like me, this is dangerous, because there are a lot of movies shown here that I've never ever seen. Some that I have seen. There are certainly filmmakers that I've heard and watched many and enjoyed many movies from. Kelly Reichardt, Greta Gerwig. You know, there are lots of them. But within the booklet that's here, it lists the films that are shown in the documentary. This is very dangerous. I want to watch all of these movies, especially given how they're shown, how it's shown how the humour was used and how it was very interesting, how the cinematography was, how the staging and the framing of the shots. It just makes you want all these films explained in minute detail, or to experience these films in minute detail. I am fascinated by this documentary. I've only watched a bit of it because I don't want to rush it, so to speak. But I'm utterly fascinated in watching. It doesn't hurt that Mark Cousins is a Belfast boy as well. But he does an awful lot to champion female cinema here. He does not narrate it. It's narrated by the voices that you see here in the front. Tilda Swinton was an executive producer, for instance, of the documentary. So, adore. I absolutely adore what I've seen of this so far, and I'm going to be digging in for the rest of the week. Next up is a Criterion release. I have already done a video of In a Lonely Place, and earlier on today I watched They Live by Night, which is another Nicholas Ray movie, same director that did that Humphrey Bogart, Gloria Graham classic. This one doesn't have the leads that the other one does, but it tells the story of a young boy who's part of a thieves circle who go robbing banks, and he's mainly the driver, but he gets involved, he does some scouting. He's very much an integral part of the team, but he meets a girl, and rather predictably they fall for each other, and he's not sure that that life is for him. It's a classic story that's been told many times about how he is caught between the life that he wants now and the life that he had behind him, much he feels like he owes, those kind of things. But it's set very much in rural America, and it's a bit of a road movie as they journey about. And in typical Nicholas Ray style, it's a wonderful watch. It's beautifully shot. The characters are just left to develop and grow and change ever so slightly as you're going through, and it sits right alongside In a Lonely Place for me as a great example of film noir. So I can't recommend that release highly enough. This is a Criterion UK release, so you can get it in both Region A and Region B. Last up, I'm not going to talk about a film, I'm going to talk about a book that I've been reading. Not always like me to read books, especially films books, but this one is a bit different. It is The Making of Alien book by J.W. Rinsler, who has done similar books on the Star Wars movies, and it's an absolute behemoth, as you can see. I'll show you some photos of this in close-up, but it is full of the usual concept art, etc., the staging and the setup of the movie itself, which is not all that it is. It is very much a chronicle of the making of Alien, which for me is one of the very quintessential and greatest sci-fi movies that has ever been made. It is a terrifying movie. I nearly want to do an entire journey through the film itself. It is utterly fascinating how it almost didn't get made. how Ridley Scott became involved, how much he wanted and changed, and how the film was nearly nothing like what it became, only for a couple of people insisting on what it becomes. I'm only about a third of the way through it. It is fascinating. It's a little difficult to read given its heft and its size. You know, it might be good for weight practice for those of us that don't otherwise like the gym. Beautiful book, and like I say, I'll overlay a few screenshots here for you so you can see and get a feel for the book itself. But that's what I've been doing this week. The plan is definitely to continue on watching the Women Make Film documentary and get the even bigger list of films that I like. I'd also like this crick in my neck to go away, but that's another point altogether. Aside from that, I'm feeling a bit of a Criterion binge as well. They Live by Night has given me that little bit of a push in that general direction. And aside from that, all deliveries have come in, so I'm not waiting on anything new. I can concentrate on what I have behind me here. Tell me what you've been watching recently. Have you seen any of the things that I've seen? And tell me what's been floating your boat recently. Thanks for watching. Take care. All the best. Bye.